You got the mic, huh?
How are you doing?
I'm all right.
I know it's been a while since you played West Virginia, but you had to have been reasonably pleased with your defensive effort the last time you visited Morgantown. What do you remember most about that game in 1931? No, I'm just joking.
Oh, really?
Your players' will to win.
We could just sit him up here, and I don't even have to come, right?
Talking to players after Saturday, I mean, their will to win and just overcoming adversity and eking out these narrow victories. How have you seen maybe their tough-mindedness, their mindset maybe grow and improve and flourish even more throughout these games?
Well, I think there is a positive mindset about our players and with our players, and I think it's just grown for year in and year out, and I think we all recognize that it certainly was a valuable asset a year ago, and and up to this point in time has become so this year as well. I just think steady improvement.
Yeah, Coach, there have been several teams who have made conference changes, but none have been quite as successful as West Virginia. Can you speak to what you see that might have been so beneficial for them to make that change?
The guy that throws it like that is probably the. Yeah, I mean they have a very talented football team, and it's not just Geno Smith. I mean they've got extremely fine receivers. I mean they're a talented, very talented offense. They've got good specialists, good return guys who also serve as their wide receivers. Their numbers on defense haven't been as good, but they've been able to outscore people and have played well on defense when they had to. Truly did.
Bill, looking at video, what was Texas Tech able to do that other teams haven't been able to do to slow down that offense?
Well, I think part of it is they're very good, and their quarterback is an extremely talented young guy as well, and they threw the ball well. I think it was kind of a matchup that tended to favor Texas Tech in regards to the passing game. Tech has been playing very well on defense, so that was the key to the ball game. They played extremely well on defense. And the fact that their matchup on offense probably favored them a little bit because they throw the ball as well as they do.
Just to follow up then, you guys have a very different style of offense in Tech, so what can you take from what Tech did to kind of use to your advantage against West Virginia?
Well, I don't know that, we can't, or at least we don't attempt to go around and take things from one game to the next. We have to view what, all the ball games that they play and define what is it in our system that would fit in our preparation for West Virginia or any opponent that we play. So it's not a matter of taking things. Now there might be philosophic thoughts in regards to how you defend Geno Smith or how you function in special teams or offense that you might tend to say maybe that we with our own schemes we can philosophically do something similar to what may have been done.
Coach, how did you go about scouting West Virginia this year? Was it just like any non-conference opponent, or knowing that they were coming into the conference and be seeing them for a lot of times in the future? Did you put more emphasis on them in the summer and video scouting?
Well, we put a decent amount of time on them, but being the seventh game of the season, and we do, and I've said this before, we do during the winter months, we do scout reports and watch videotape and scrutinize all of our opponents. Everybody does that. And then we do it again, and that's winter and spring collectively before we start spring ball, and then we do it again in the summer. The teams that get the vast amount of attention is, obviously earlier ball games. But, we've still, tried to scrutinize West Virginia from the, in all those time frames that I talked about. So.
Coach, how key is putting pressure on Geno Smith this week, and what are the challenges that you all have, especially with a big offensive line like West Virginia?
Well, I think you've answered your own question. It's difficult, because they do a nice job up front. I mean, they pass protect well, they run block well, they're big, they're physical. They're tall guys. Again, I think I said last week, it's kind of very similar to Iowa State in terms of having, guys that are, they're 6'6", 6'5" across the board, with the exception of the left tackle who's, is 336 or something like that. The rest of them are all right around 3 to 305, so they're big young guys, and then they put a small 5'9" running back in behind them. Sometimes hard to see in the running game, but they do a nice job of protection, and consequently that's part of the reason they've had such success in the passing game. Smith's extremely talented, but he's got a lot of people around him that help, and that just makes it harder for you to do whatever you want to do, cover them or rush them, either one.
I know you always put a great deal of importance on time of possession, but is it even more important in a game like this to keep their offense off the field?
Well, yes and no. If you keep them out of the end zone and off the field, that's a real positive thing. If they're scoring a mile a minute, then possession time is. Well, it's good in either account, I guess. But I don't want them to be scoring at 7 points a minute either. And they're very capable of doing that.
Coach, back here, Dana Holgerson has spent time at Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Does this West Virginia offense maybe look more similar to Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, or has he taken maybe things that he's learned from at both stops?
Well, I think the latter is correct. I mean, you see similarities in what he and Mike did together at Texas Tech and what they did at Oklahoma State, and you see some new things added to it as you go. So I think it's just a matter of tweaking their offense. He was, and his tenure goes back even further than as far as the initiation of it with Hal Mumme. And he was with Hal for a while as well, so he's kind of been on the ground floor of the development of that offense.
You guys asleep today?
Landry Jones, you guys did a reasonably good job against them. Both him and Geno averaged about 40 passing attempts a game in Big 12 games. How pleased have you been with the understanding you're going to face a big test here, but just keeping receivers in front of you and not giving up stuff over the top so far this season?
Well, that's important to us. It's important to any football team, and it was important to Texas Tech against West Virginia. That's, easier said than done. Am I pleased that we have? For the most part, yes. But as I said, it's, this is probably as talented a group I haven't studied Texas Tech yet, but this is a very talented group of wide receivers. And they can run, they've got good quickness, change of direction. They attack the thrown ball. They're this really good group. So, what we've done in the past isn't, we'll see.
Coach, you've been around the game for a while. Does this Texas Tech offense do anything that maybe you haven't seen before? And if so, how is that going to make it difficult for you guys to stop?
Texas Tech or West Virginia?
West Virginia, sorry.
It's not, it's not things that we haven't seen before and that other people don't replicate or duplicate. It's just, it's how they do it. That system has always been a heavy execution system. It's not, tremendously broad-based. It's just about taking a few things and doing extremely well with them, and they do that, so they can adjust on the move after the snap of the ball, and so yeah, I mean, it's a hard defense to defend, or a hard offense to defend against.
In this day of age, with all the flashy offenses that are around, talking like Chris Harper after the game, he said, we may look different, but we get the job done. Is there a sense of pride that this team has in, that blue-collar, tough-nosed approach in the face of these flashier offenses that people talk about?
Well, I think they probably do. I mean, I guess you can, if you get the ball in the end zone, your offense can look pretty flashy, no matter how you get it there. But I have an appreciation, as I've shared so many times, with the value system and the intrinsic values of our young guys collectively, for the most part. And I think that's what Chris was reflecting upon, is just a mindset that it's not important how it gets there, so it's important that it does. So.
Coach, last week you guys went to Iowa State, an environment that's really unfamiliar because you hadn't been there in so long. Going there and winning, does that help you prepare for West Virginia, obviously another environment that nobody's really been to?
Well, maybe to a certain degree, but again, when you put the game on the field, West Virginia is an entirely different type of football team than Iowa State, and so, and if we hold true to what our beliefs are, that you keep the game, between the white lines, you've heard me say that, then it really is about football itself, and so it is a far different preparation. Now, as far as all the environment issues that take place when you travel, that goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago. It's just the intrinsic values, the discipline of being able to stay in the confines of what you know and how to go about doing what you do, whether it's on the bus, on the plane, et cetera, locker room, the whole bit. So, the fact that it's someplace that you haven't been before, I don't know that that has a real dramatic impact. Visitors' locker rooms across the country are about the size of a closet. So it's pretty tight quartered wherever you go, and once you get in them, they're all about the same.
Coach, you have to deal with Texas Tech obviously on a yearly basis, but it's hard to get a good look in practice from your scout squad when it comes to West Virginia. And part number 2 is, when's the last time you were personally flagged for sideline interference?
I can't recall that I have, number one. So it's been in excess of 20 some odd years. The other question was about
getting a good look from your scout squad.
Oh, you can't replicate what they can do with their offense, and really you can't replicate what anybody does offensively, defensively, or special teams. Because the youngsters you have on the scout squads are they haven't grown into those capabilities yet. Not collectively, maybe a few are advancing, but the significant thing in practice is being able to work, good on good, which we do a decent amount of time, week in and week out. That gives us greater assistance, I think, in the preparation for the ball game, at least from a physical standpoint, as much as anything.
Bill, Colin is particularly adept on design runs to kind of let the play develop and see the holes as they try to attack them as they develop. How difficult is that for a rusher, just not wanting to just absolutely just take off and bolt for a hole? And how much has he developed as a rusher?
Yeah, well, I think, he has patience, but he has patience in life. I mean, it's a carryover value that Colin possesses, and so it kind of fits right in on the football field for him. It's not an easy value. You see a lot of running backs that don't have, or quarterbacks, whoever happens to be carrying the ball, that just don't have the kind of patience to wait, and try to pick your way. I think, John is getting better at that. He's made some improvement. I think he's kind of tried to replicate Colin a little bit in that respect. But easy? No, not at all.
I got two for you. A lot of people might look at this game and say it's a matchup of potential Heisman-winning quarterbacks. Do you look at it that way? Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. No, I mean that's because that's the sidelight, and that would get you off track of your preparation for the ball game. I don't, and I don't think you'd have to ask him. I don't think Colin really, feels that way. I think what's significant to him, and Smith's probably the same way. What is it that I can do to help our football team be successful? And that's probably about as far as they go with it.
Is that with Klein's maturity? Is that something that's you just kind of understand that even though he's being mentioned for awards, that he's not going to get caught up in that?
Well, I would never want to take anything for granted, so you always look for signs. But he's, he handles things quite well, and I couldn't say enough about, how he's handled, the success that he's had, how he's handled his leadership role, his interaction with the players in our program. All of it's been very good.
Kansas State's 6-0, probably going to go to the postseason again this year now that you're well eligible. But there's only 2 more years left of the current postseason format of the BCS. John Curry last year, to say this in displeasure with the political parts of it for the selection of the teams. How do you feel about the new playoff that's coming?
Well, I think they're still working out some of the kinks. I've said all along, and it appears that it won't impact the bowl system itself, and that was my only concern. If indeed it were to impact the bowl system to give as many teams as possible opportunities that are bowl eligible to participate. It's a great thing for them. It's a great thing for their fans and their schools. And if the new system were to disrupt that, then I wouldn't be in favor of it. But it appears that will not be the case.
Bill, you mentioned Colin's maturity. What other attributes do you have that you appreciate as a coach that the average viewer or fan may not see on a TV screen?
Well, I think probably everything, and I think I've probably mentioned, from time to time, all those things. I think he's a very well-rounded young guy. He can do a lot of things. He's a talented musician. He's a tremendous family man. He's very strong with his faith. He cares about his teammates. A genuine care and concern. He's able to organize the many things that he does in his life in such a way that he can still focus diligently on football and then set aside time for family and set aside time for academics and do it in such a way that he's not always in a rush. Just a well-organized young man, but I think a deep sense of value and purpose, I think, are significant with Colin.
Secondly, when you came back to the program and you saw him, how much did his skill set match what you were looking for in your ideal quarterback for your offense?
Well, it took a while to develop, I think. That's why he was a receiver. Over a period of time, you could see, you see 2 things. One, you could see that he had those values that you knew wherever he played that he would continue to improve and get better and become good at. And then, the idea that we didn't have, backup quarterback at that time that put him in that environment. And like anything else that he does, if he's invested in it, he's gonna find ways to get better, and he did all of that. Did it well.
Coach, could you talk about Chris Harper and his kind of emergence in Big 12 play, especially these last 2 games? Have you seen something develop with him, that he's getting open a little bit more, and do you see this matchup being favorable to him?
Well, Chris is a very fine wide receiver, and he's got good size to him, and in addition to being able to run well. And it's when you play that position, you don't know whether you're going to catch 10 or 0. It just kind of depends on how people line up and play you. One-on-one, he has been pretty good the course of the season. Is pretty good about finding open areas himself. I mean, he has skill. It just depends so much on what defenses do in terms of where you go with football.
And Terrell Miller has been in a lot to block. Is that his primary role? Is that why he's playing a lot right now?
Well, he's a functional blocker for us, but we can't put a guy on the field, that just, you don't want to sound the alarm. I mean, that'd cut your offense in half. So, you got to be able to throw the ball with him in there. And, we've done a little bit of that, not a great deal, but a little bit.
Yeah, Bill, you've won a couple of games now on the road, again by less than a touchdown, but kind of in different ways. Is that something that can carry over from last year, even the experience? Do you feel like as the program progresses, that sort of becomes maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will, just the mindset of being able to, or is it each team that different that you really can't draw on one year?
Well, I think it develops a confidence, in the young people that that manage to make that happen. And I think there was a confidence that was a carryover from the previous year. But by the same token, in my way of thinking, and I don't always think the same way they do, but every game is different. But I would like to. I just feel as though, that our players, they have the confidence to be competitive in those type of ball games, and have been.
Coach, halfway through the season, for the most part, your kicking game has been very successful. What about the positive and negatives of the new kicking rules halfway through the season?
Well, I think all those really are centered around, the kickoff. And I'm not a big fan of it. I'm a fan of being able to protect young people and not get anybody hurt. But I don't see that the rule itself has had any impact on that whatsoever. You see a lot of returns, and a lot of people are putting the ball on the goal line rather than way into the end zone. To force somebody to run it out, hoping that you can pin them at least inside the 25 and gain, a few yards in that respect. But the biggest concern, more so than that, is probably the onside kick, and how if you get yourself into that position, it is really complex to be able to execute successfully an onside kick, just because of the fair catch rule that's implemented with the one bounce thing.
Coach, going back to time of possession, with a team like West Virginia that has such a prolific offense, is your guys' tendency to control the ball and have it for a longer period of time, is that even more important in a game like this where your defense really needs to be, as sharp and as crisp and as fresh as possible throughout the game to stop those guys?
Well, I think, the thought behind that is appropriate, but what's important to us is is for that to happen, we have to be a well-balanced offense. That's just the nature of it. If we become one-sided in our approach, then it just makes it that much more complex for us and that much easier for the opponent, to defend one side. Only have to defend one side of the approach. But if you can hang on to the football for a long period of time and move it and have some success with it, so that A, you're getting the ball in the end zone, and B, at least if not that, you've been able to create field position for your defense. Those are significant things. We had the 2 possessions last week that didn't result in scores, and we had to punt and defend them on the 1 and on the 3. That's what I mean by being able to gain field position, and but you had to move the ball to get it in a position where the punts are a little bit shorter. So I don't know what all that says, but you know, yes, if we can use the clock, but be successful in terms of getting points on the board. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what really counts.
Coach, since you're talking about punts, Brian Doerr's been great all year. He allowed his first return on a punt on Saturday, and I think it was for only like 3 yards. What's it like having a guy like him knowing that if your offense can't get the job done, and he's got to be key towards stopping West Virginia, right?
Well, I think, you know, all of your special teams and certainly your punting game, you know, are critical. And it's critical in this ball game, and not just Brian, but, you know, the coverage. There's 10 guys on that unit, 11 guys. And, you know, they've got an awfully good young guy back there that's awful quick and good change of direction, fast, handle the ball well. He's scary.
Coach, could you characterize for us your reaction when you saw the first VCS rankings come out?
I don't know that I ever saw them. Yeah, I can't tell you because I didn't see them. I mean, I hear it, and you know, that's.
You know where you stand now.
It's neither here nor there.
Does that approach, in a lot of ways, help your team in what we would consider a big game coming up this week to be able to keep that same approach?
Well, I don't know. That's just, I mean, my approach is just preparation for the next ball game, and you know, see what happens at the end of the season. But I understand young people that, you know, they're going to read the newspapers and see the television and get on their apparatus and, you know, find all that information out, and you know, and it's a compliment to them, you know, certainly, and you know, I can appreciate that, and I don't have an issue with that. But you know, when it comes time to, you know, go back to work, then you better be prepared to do it. And if you're thinking about the past, then you got some problems.
Coach, how much of your plan, your formula in building this success this time and your first stint here is designed or was designed specifically for Kansas State and maybe the challenges or the unique aspects of Kansas State versus, you know, being applicable at any place nationally?
Well, I think the fundamental or basic premise would, you know, I think, you know, it's not, you know, complicated or anything, but you know, I think would fit anywhere. At least for me, if I were anywhere, you know, anywhere else. I think there is uniqueness to our university and our program, and you know, we've had to and always have, you know, tried to play to that uniqueness, and so, you know, consequently there probably are some things that may be a little different than what you might do, you know, someplace else because of that.
Last question. Coach, we talked a little bit about Geno Smith today, but what is about him that impresses you most? Could you pick a single thing?
Yeah, from what I understand, he's you know, he's a very pleasant, good person. Also, like Colin, shows humility. Not you know, and having all the numbers that he has, pays tribute to his teammates, and you know, it's just those values that I appreciate. You know, certainly, I mean, his skill set. I mean, obviously, anybody would appreciate that, but you know, I like the kind of man that he is.
Bill, if I could sneak one more in on Geno, I've seen him compared to, or heard people compare him to Robert Griffin III. Do you like that comparison, and just how absurd is it that he's thrown for all these yards and all these touchdowns without an interception to this point?
Well, I think it speaks highly for Geno. It speaks highly for his offensive line, and it speaks very highly for his wide receivers, and I can see the comparison between he and Robert.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you.